All right. Thank you for joining us today for RSI's Lunch and Learn webinar on turnaround time. I'm Stephanie Peer. I work in compliance and special projects at Reference Services. Just a reminder, we are recording the webinar today, and the recording and slides will be made available within the next day or two. And I believe the slides will be also posted in the chat if you'd like to download those from there. We want to start with our legal disclaimer. So as you know, we are a consumer reporting agency and we are not attorneys. So any information given in today's webinar is educational in nature and should not be considered legal advice. Presenting today, we have 3 other team members with me today. We have Brad, RSI's President and COO, Alicia, our Director of Compliance and Operations, and Heather, one of our client relations specialists. Today's topic is turnaround times, and we're going to be discussing several items today, including turnaround times by state, some best practices for order entry, automation versus clerk assisted in county searches, the RSI QA process, and drug screening. If at any time during the presentation you have any questions at all, please submit those in the chat and we will have some time at the end to address those questions. And now I'm going to turn it over to Brad to get started.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. So I'm going to focus my attention here on the presentation about the county criminal turnaround times. Then Alicia and others will jump in on some other things. So I'm going to touch primarily in that area right now. And so I just want to set the stage here for what we are showing as far as all these numbers go. We are talking about hours and minutes that RSI returns a completed report to our client. And a completed report can mean also those searches that are ordered with any type of customized packages that we've put together. So to start off, I will tell you that RSI, we have thousands of clients all over the country. So we are giving you times here that are both on average across the entire country. We are based in Evansville, Indiana, so we do have a concentration of a large client base in Indiana and in the Midwest and in the South and in the East primarily. We do work, however, in the West. We literally have a client that represents every state, or clients that represent every state. So we'll get into the state times here a little bit further on in the presentation. But county criminal searches, we're averaging right at 24 hours. Our verification orders, we say that 80% of those are returned overall in 48 hours. And then here you can see our drug screening returns, and we'll talk about these more later in the presentation. But lab-based, we're talking negatives are 24 to 48 hours. The lab-based positives are 5 to 7 business days. The instant panel negatives, 15 minutes. And then instant panel positives also going back to MRO review. So it's a 5 to 7 day window. So first we want to focus in on the county criminals because that's where all the delays come from, because we do have to source, or we will source, the county criminal data if we find records on any of the nationwide searches that we have and also the Patriot data searches that we have. In our nationwides, we look at well over 2,200 databases. And so a lot of those are what we called rolled up data. It's data that comes from the local level and then gets rolled up into these national databases. So we want to go to the original verifying source of record, which is at the county level. So even if we see a record, again, at the nationwide, we are going down to the county level to verify. So at the county level, there's a number of things that kind of hit us in this world, if you will, and things that delay. I will tell you that roughly 60% of the country, we get information from data-driven sources at the county level. So there's access terminals and the county clerks actually put their data in databases and we can capture those without actually physically going to the courthouse. And so those are automated counties. Then the other 40% are clerk assisted counties. And those are the ones that our researchers are physically walking into the courthouse. We're talking to the clerk. We're needing their assistance in pulling data, whether that's going to an access terminal in the courthouse or asking the clerk to physically pull records and hand them in paper to us, which seems kind of old school, but that still takes place in 40% of the country. And just like all of us on this call who are trying to hire people and keep good employees around, the courthouses are certainly no different. And they're telling us all the time that they don't have enough help at the courthouse, especially obviously those that are clerk assisted. So we are hearing that quite a bit. You know, over the years, there's been natural disasters. And the last year we had hurricanes that hit the South, closed down courthouses for weeks on end until they were rebuilt or opened back up. We've certainly gone through COVID. It's not nearly as bad as that, but we can be in a very small jurisdiction where there's one clerk and that clerk gets sick and she or he is out for, an extended period of time. So we do have to get faced with that. And then we have to verify records. And a lot of that has to do with the identifiers that we have on hand from the applicant. The FCRA requires us to have no less than 2 personal identifiers. And an identifier in our case would be first name, last name is one identifier. Middle name, middle initial would be a second. A date of birth, social security trace, social security number, address, all those are separate identifiers. And in some jurisdictions in some states, and we'll talk about this more, have really reduced the amount of identifiers that they're associating with their records. And it's really making it difficult on our industry to connect the dots, if you will, to make sure we're reporting on the correct person. And, as much as speed is important, it's probably more important that we send back to you a confident record that we have the right person and we have connected the dots on the record to the proper individual. So again, because 60% of these states are automated, I should say jurisdictions are automated, they lose electronic connection. And we've dealt with that this year in South Carolina and Texas back in the spring, to where something had happened and there was an IT issue and those folks were shut down for weeks on end, or if not shut down, they were very intermittent, and that created backlogs, and then those backlogs created more delays. And I have for you here is a screenshot of what we get on a daily basis. This was one from last Thursday, but this is just a primary example of the notifications we get, to where this affected all counties in Massachusetts where the access terminals are unavailable and their IT was working on something, or same thing in Pennsylvania where experiencing connectivity issues and the IT is trying to resolve it. And most of these things get resolved in the same day, but we certainly see where these things can take days, if not weeks, to resolve themselves. So now I want to talk about some states that we know have extended turnaround times and give you some insight as to what we're dealing with there. So Kentucky, Georgia, Louisiana, Michigan, Texas, West Virginia, these all are at the top of the list of those that have extended turnaround times beyond what we call our average 24 hours. All of these are clerk assisted. They typically take between 30 to 50 hours. This is not an inclusive list. There are others that we could put on this list, but these are the tops. But these are a mix of automation in some states. They're a mix of automated counties and clerk assisted. But these are the ones that come to mind. Michigan and California specifically are rolling out clean slate laws. These clean slate laws are they're removing records after certain periods of time, 7 years, or things are coming out of records, 3 years, things are coming out. They're reducing the personal identifiers that are associated with those records. These are certainly states that really didn't keep in mind the background screening industry and the importance of what we do for our clients, because these lawmakers are trying to protect the applicants. And I think what they're doing is important. But what they need to do is give us as an industry access to information that may not be available to the general public. As an industry, the Professional Background Screeners Association is trying to do that, but these clean slate laws have certainly created lots of challenges for our industry. Mississippi and New Hampshire specifically have huge backlogs. They're both clerk assisted. They both are reporting staffing issues at the current time. And I've highlighted Kentucky and Mississippi because these two states actually have what we call an all-inclusive statewide report, or at least a statewide report that we feel is valid, that is something that we can use. The other states do not. The challenge that we have is that these states have access fees. So where we can get the county data with no access fee, and that becomes the original source of record, we would rather go there first. But if you have some reports that are in these states that are lingering on, and we're giving you ETAs that are longer than normal, we might have a discussion about, well, should we order a Kentucky all-inclusive statewide that we can get back same day? The challenge is that Kentucky statewide is going to come at an additional cost of $25. So you have to weigh the importance of, do I want to spend the additional $25 access fee to get the report back, or would I rather wait another day or two to see if the county will clear? Most all states in Kentucky do not charge a county fee. However, we just got notification last week that Anderson County just enacted a $27 fee. So that's beginning to happen there. Mississippi, you can see there, they have a $10 statewide access fee, where their counties vary. I think they only have 7 counties out of 82 that actually charge a fee that are somewhere around the $5 to $15 range. So here's a screenshot of something that we look at every month. You can see here, this is January through July. You can see the orange, this is our county criminal turnaround times. They all average, you can see, just less than 25, 24 hours. Some months are closer to 20. The blue line is our federal searches. Those are all automated. You can tell they come back less than 5 hours, or almost an instant search. But just to show you how over time these turnaround times will vary depending on the volume that we're running in that given month and the jurisdictions that we're looking at. Here's the actual numbers for June: 23.84 hours, July 22.86 hours. And then our average hit rate, which is important to disclose here, is 20.37%. And I tell people all the time that this means 80% of our records are going to come back clear. They're going to come right through the system, and you're going to get them back in less than 24 hours. And typically that other 20% is probably what's taking longer than 24 hours. So in general, if things are taking longer than 24 hours, you can probably assume that we're looking at records on your applicant, or at least we're trying to make sure we have the correct applicant and those records belong to that applicant. And then lastly, for my part, this is a lot of data. I'm not going to read these lines for line, but I just wanted to give you a quick glance at how different these states can be. This is the last 90-day cycle, May through July. You can see here that the hit rates are all over the place, but they're close to 20% on average, as I just showed you. The turnaround times for an average to be 24 hours, you can see, Alabama and at 6 hours, and you can see Arizona at 48. But you can also see Michigan, where we're having real troubles, 138 hours, and you can see, I believe it's New Hampshire's 182. These numbers change quite often, but these are fairly accurate by state and giving you a 90-day look. Those of you in Indiana, you can sell there, 10 hours, where Kentucky is 48. That's an automated state of Indiana versus clerk assisted state in Kentucky at 48. So we can give this to you at any time. We can kind of run reports for you to kind of get an idea if you're getting ready to move to a new state and there's a concentration of volume that you're concerned about. We can always do some homework for you to kind of see what that trend has looked like. So at this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to Alicia, who's going to talk about our verification services.
All right, thanks, Brad. Hi, everyone. So yeah, we're turning our focus to possible causes for delays in verifications. Some of the reasons employment verifications might be delayed are the company is not on the work number and we're waiting for the company to call us back, or we're waiting for the applicant to provide documentation. For education verifications, the schools might be closed for summer or winter break or fall, and we're waiting for them to give us a call back. For reference checks, we're usually waiting for the reference to return our call, or we might be waiting on the applicant to provide additional references. When we're waiting for an applicant to respond, it's usually to provide additional references, proof of education, or maybe a W-2 for an employment verification. We do make daily attempts to capture all of the above, and we do put notes in the system on where we are in the process. But just give us a call if you have any questions on, what might be going on with that verification. But this time, I'm going to turn it over to Heather. She's going to talk about reasons for drug screen delays.
Thanks, Leisha. Hi, everyone. All right, we're going to move forward to the drug testing slide. And there are several reasons why you might see a delay on a drug test. Now, again, Brad talked earlier about the difference between lab-based and instant tests. Both of those can be delayed if there is a possible positive, as I'm sure you're all aware. Another reason for a delay would be if the applicant is slow to either schedule their test, if you're using the applicant self-scheduling process, or if you're giving them a 3-day window or 5-day window and they wait till the very last minute to take their test. Another reason might be a poor specimen. So that could be an abnormal pH, a possible positive that might have just simply been triggered from a prescription that they're on, and then ultimately goes into the MRO review. Sometimes a lab is closed. That is very rare, but it does happen. Brad mentioned earlier the hurricane that caused some county court closures. Same thing happened. Our lab was shut down due to a major hurricane a couple years ago. They were flooded. So, that can happen and will cause delays. Sometimes the delivery service, such as UPS or FedEx, will have delays in shipping the lab-based specimens from the clinic to the lab. And then, as mentioned before, those natural disasters that can affect either the labs or the delivery service. So if you're using lab-based, instant panels can improve your turnaround time. Again, I want to stress that those instant results are only for obvious negatives. So, the donor gives the specimen at the clinic and the clinic has a machine which will read that specimen instantly. If there are no issues with the specimen, you will get pretty instant negative results. The negative to those instant panels is there are fewer clinic options that are enabled with that e-reader that can read the specimen right there on site at the clinic. So we like to give our clients both options so you can utilize the instant test in most cases. And then if you're having problems finding a clinic in a particular area, we can cancel that instant and you can order a lab-based test. Now, of course, we do have a wide range of panels available, not only the standard 5 to 10, but we also have a lot of custom panels. So if you ever have the need for a particular, what we call analyte, that needs to be tested for, just reach out to us. And in most cases, we can find a custom panel that will work. And again, most of these, all of our clinics are enabled in eScreen. So that electronic e-passport, which is an electronic chain of custody form, can be scanned at the clinic. In some cases, if there's no installed in-network clinic in a particular area, we can ship a paper chain of custody to your donor and we can send them to an out-of-network clinic. It might be a little higher cost, but sometimes paying a few extra dollars is worth it to get them in a convenient area. And that wraps up the drug testing. So I will throw it back to Alicia now. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks, Heather. So we're going to go over a few best practices. So for order entry, Those clients that are entering orders manually, it's helpful to review alias names that auto-populate prior to finalizing the order. For example, if you see an alias that is just a misspelling of the applicant's actual name, this would be an invalid alias and can be deleted because they've never gone by that name before. And just a reminder to double check the social security number and date of birth. These can be reviewed before ordering the report. And for the applicant entry through AppScreen and Digital Delve or Quick App and TaskWorks, you will want to encourage the applicant to use their full legal name. The platforms do not require a middle name. However, it is helpful in the identification process for criminal orders and also helps reduce turnaround time. We have seen where some applicants will check the box that says no middle name when in fact the social security trace will show one. So that is something that we watch out for, especially for common names. And please note that there are risks associated with using the applicant entry services. There could be data entry errors that will cause issues with obtaining an accurate screening report. And we've also seen cases where we believe the applicant purposely transposed some digits in the date of birth or social security number to try to throw off the criminal portion of the report. So some additional best practices. Make sure RSI is aware of any special instructions or compliance requests that you have for reports so we can document this in the system for our teams. So for criminal scope reporting, our default is to report misdemeanors for 10 years and felonies forever. However, for example, some clients only want to see charges maybe within 7 years, and therefore we make a note in the system so our order review department knows to hide any charges over that time period. And verifications, it's helpful to know, for example, how many references you would like for us to call, because some applicants might add 5 or 6 references, but only 3 are needed. So that helps speed the turnaround time and costs also. We do make at least 3 attempts to reach out to the employer or school or reference before reaching out to the client or applicant. And if you'd like to instruct us on how to proceed or change the number of attempts, you can just let us know. You can also let us know how many days you would like to have on drug screen invitations before they expire. The default is set to 14 days, but it can be shorter. We would also like to mention that RSI posts ETAs to criminal orders on a weekly basis. We have extended client services hours for help. We answer the phone up until 9 p.m. Central Time each night, including weekends and holidays. And just a reminder to check RSI portals for daily court delay updates. We post these as we get them from our vendors. Now we just want to take a little bit and talk about the Social Security trace. The Social Security trace is used to determine address history so the systems know what counties to pull in, and it also helps our order review team determine identification for criminal orders. To the right is an example of a Social Security trace message in the Digital Delve platform. So in the Digital Delve platform only, you might see a Social Security trace message in red letters to the right of the search. And for example, you might see date of birth mismatch found, no reportable address history found, social security number was issued before applicant's date of birth, etc. And depending on the message, the reasoning could be that there was a typo when entering the social security number or date of birth, or the applicant could simply be just too young to have a credit history. So it's important to note that the Social Security Trace product pulls credit header data from various consumer databases, and therefore inaccuracies are possible. It's not pulled from the Social Security Administration. The Social Security Trace should not be used for any hiring decision ever. So if you have any questions regarding the Social Security Trace messages, and what it might mean, just give us a call at 812-474-9000, and we would be happy to review that message and verify the social security number with you and try to figure out why that's on there. The TASWorks platform has much fewer errors due to the double entry of the social security number requirement for both employers and applicants. And that wraps my part up. Stephanie will wrap it up with the key takeaways.
Thanks, Alicia. So just a few takeaways from today's session. Make sure that the RSI team is aware of any special instructions you have for reporting or for your verifications, and we can put those in the system for you. All criminal records are verified at the county courthouse, and turnaround times can vary greatly depending on if they're automated or require clerk assistance. We always want to get the full legal name of the applicants and ask that you try to double check other data points like the social security number and date of birth. Lastly, consider instant drug panels for immediate negative responses to help decrease your turnaround times. If you have any special instructions that you'd like to work with us on, you can email compliance@referenceservices.com. Or if you are considering a change to your drug screening or packaging, you can email sales@referenceservices.com or contact your dedicated account rep. And at this time, we hope you've all been submitting questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Heather to answer some of those questions that have been coming in.
Thank you, Stephanie. I don't see any questions in the chat feature or the Q&A at this time, so we do have like 4 more minutes here. If anybody has a question they'd like to submit, we'll be happy to address that. The only question so far was about the turnaround time deck, the PowerPoint deck, and I did let Charlotte know that we would be sending that out along with the recording. We do have another question coming in. What type of databases are used to verify SSN if you don't use the Social Security Administration? So what the Social Security Trace database looks like, it's a variety of data sources. So that can be credit header data, warranty registration information, change of address forms, social media. There are a lot of sources that populate that Social Security Trace. Just keep in mind that is not geared for hiring purposes. It is primarily for our team. So it will give us alias names. So that helps find records on other names that they've had. It will pull an address history. So we know what counties to look for records in. In addition, as Alicia mentioned earlier, it can be used with some additional identifiers on that, to make a third personal identifying item, such as an address match. So this candidate did live at this address where the criminal record was reported. So it's very important to know that you should not be using Social Security Trace data for employment purposes for your hiring decisions. And if you ever see one of those messages, just reach out to us and we can take a look. Any other questions? I don't see any popping in yet.
Heather, I did put the PDF version of the presentation in the chat. I'm not sure if everyone's able to see that or not, but we'll send it out with the recording.
Yeah, she said she couldn't see it, so. I don't know if it's because it was put on there before the meeting started. She had no chat history, she said.
Okay, well, we'll add it with the recording once it's available as well.
Well, I don't see any other questions coming in. Let's see, here's one. Should a Social Security trace always be run in addition to the other record checks? Absolutely. All of our packages include the Social Security trace, and if you are ordering from an a la carte method, you should always include that Social Security trace. It is extremely helpful in populating the alias names in county jurisdictions. We're getting a lot of thank yous, but I don't see any other questions, and we're at 11:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather. And thanks everyone for joining. We'll put further announcements out for more webinars in September as well. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you, everyone.